So I got some information coming in that Alberto Puello is basically trying to put his hat in the ring for Teofimo's next fight. He said that the WBC would make some things happen if he was available to do the fight for Teofimo Lopez. He's open to the fight, even though he has options for other fights right now, like Sandor Martin and also Gary Russell Jr. could be a mandatory for that rematch. Pulo said that he'll be somebody that can get in the ring with Teofimo Lopez. He said since Teofimo Lopez's father has not really found an opponent, he feels like he can't find a top opponent right now. And Pulo says that, well, I can jump in the ring with him right now if he's looking for a top opponent. And that's somebody who's available. I mean, right now, Teofimo, he's had situations where he's tried to go down and have fights at 35 last year. He tried to make a fight with Matias, but Matias had an injury, so he couldn't really have that situation. And people say, well, why would Teofimo try to make a fight with Matias and he's injured? Well, Matias called out Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez didn't really, and they both had mutual interests. So at around the time, Teofimo Lopez needed a fight for February. So he didn't know that Matias was hurt or anything like that. He doesn't keep up with other guys like that. So at that time, he felt like Matias was basically going to be available, and he didn't take a lot of damage in his last fight. But Matias was actually hurt. He had a wrist injury or something like that. And now, in this situation with Pulo, one thing about Teofimo Lopez, the only person I say that Teofimo Lopez tried to save for a last fight is probably Devin Haney or something like that, which is not a bad idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be real. If I was a boxer right now, especially in Teofimo Lopez's position, I wouldn't change anything about how my fight's been going. I would fight Lomachenko, Kambosos, Sandor Martin, Josh Taylor the same way he's moving. There's nothing wrong with the fights he's been picking. If he can squeeze a Pulo in there after a Claggett, that'll be a good fight. People say Claggett's not a good fight and he's cherry picking Claggett. Now, I wouldn't particularly call that a cherry pick if he just fought Jermaine Ortiz in February. He didn't have to fight Jermaine Ortiz. Nobody said that Teofimo had a high demand to fight Jermaine Ortiz coming up and he needs to get in the ring with him. He doesn't need to get in the ring with Jermaine Ortiz, but he did. And that was a tough fight. Jermaine Ortiz, even though he came up from 35, Jermaine Ortiz is a tough fight at 35 and 40. Even at 140, Jermaine Ortiz is still a big guy. He still has enough size. His size wasn't a huge difference against Teofimo Lopez. So at the end of the day, I feel like Teofimo would definitely be available for that fight. He's not turning down any fights. He's not. The only thing I've seen Teofimo Lopez have problems with is people throwing in rehydration clauses and also them saying that he needs to come down to 35 and take a rehydration clause, which is something that he's not trying to do, especially if you're not paying enough. These guys aren't paying enough, and he can't do it at 35 like that. That's the reason why he went up to 140. And then another situation was because he tried to do the fight with Tank Davis, but at the end of the day, Tank Davis is not writing the contracts out and he's not negotiating. And neither is Teofimo Lopez. He's just getting the offer of what's available, and it didn't meet his standards. But overall, I feel like with Teofimo Lopez taking the fights he has taken on short notice and everything else, like Josh Taylor and all these other guys, he's putting himself in position right now to where, yeah, he could fight a Pulo, but I don't know what that would do for him unless it's going to be a mandatory or anything like that. If it's not really a mandatory, then it's not going to make a lot of sense for him to fight a top contender. And when you have other guys who's basically in line for that same belt, you still have Jack Catterall around, you still have Barbosa, still have Jose Ramirez. Those guys have fights overall, but I'm just saying, as far as the names being there, you still have Dalton Smith. You still have Adam Azim, who's probably lower top 10, but like 9 or 10 probably 8 around this time. But even with Devin Haney, he doesn't have a belt right now. So Teofimo's not trying to fight that guy Devin Haney without a belt. That wouldn't make any sense right now unless, because people say, the belts is what matters as far as guys at 140. Why would this guy fight a guy without a belt? most of the fights they tried to line up with Matias was guys that were actually had a belt. So with Puello, he can skip to the head of the line as far as in that area because he's already beat a guy like Gary Russell, and you don't really have a lot of names available. Like I said, Dalton Smith is not really being mentioned with Teofimo or anybody else right now. So all the guys at 140 don't have a lot of options as far as available fighters. A lot of guys aren't available right now. So yeah, but Puello, he has an option right now with Sandor Martin. If I was him, I would just go along with that because it is for a belt, and I would consider that later on. I don't know how many times Teofimo is going to fight this year. If I had to guess, I would say 3 times. He possibly could be on the card with Top Rank versus Golden Boy. But we don't understand. We don't know yet. I don't know if his contract's going to be end on this fight or the next fight. I know this is his last year on this contract. He may re-sign, even with all the things being said. He may re-sign. He's becoming more of a business guy now. He has his own promotional company. He's signing his own fighters. So it's a lot of things that's being done behind the scenes. But if Puello want to take that chance with Teofimo Lopez, he can definitely make that fight happen. But you know, with the promotional companies and everything else involved, I know PBC and everybody else is doing business with Top Rank and everything else going on, but because Top Rank is doing business right now with the Tank Davis situation with Lomachenko, so they can go to the table and talk about the Puello and Teofimo fight the same time they talk about the Lomachenko and Tank Davis fight. So I can definitely see that happening. And Teofimo does need a couple of names right now because Matias is a guy he tried to fight. He still can fight a guy like Matias, but if you're a guy like Teofimo, you're going to say, what is he bringing to the table? And the pay, I want to get paid this certain amount. And the pay was really a problem, even though it's not other promotional companies' faults, or, I mean, that's what Top Rank is paying right now. They're not really dishing out a big bag of money for certain fights that's not attracting everything. It's not on pay-per-view, so you can't really get a substantial amount of money. Unless you're like Cambosis, where you got a whole country in Australia that sells out just stadiums and everything else. But if you can do that, that'll work. But I think Puello's a good option. But we'll have to see, man. He already has a lot set up. He has 2 big fights that's already kind of lined up as mandatories and everything else. So we'll see. But that's all I got. Like, subscribe.